October 14, 1944. The sky over northern Germany glimmered with the silver streaks of P-51 Mustangs, slicing through the morning mist like arrows of defiance. Sunlight bounced off polished fuselages, painting streaks of gold across the clouds. Below, bombed-out villages lay silent, punctuated only by the distant rumble of retreating tanks. There was exhilaration in the air, an electric pulse of inevitability. Victory was on the horizon. Yet, if anyone had whispered the truth then, it would have sounded absurd. These same aircraft, the pride of Allied air power, might one day sit idle in the desert, stripped of their glory, relegated to relics of a war already won. The P-51 Mustang was not merely a plane, it was a revolution in flight. Born from necessity, yet exceeding every expectation, it was a machine built to dominate. First flown in 1940 by North American Aviation, the Mustang was conceived as a fast, agile fighter for the Allies, but its destiny was far greater. Powered by the legendary Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, it could fly farther, faster, and higher than almost any other propeller-driven aircraft of the era. It escorted bombers over Berlin, outmaneuvered Luftwaffe aces, and gave Allied airmen the confidence to dream in the impossible, a sky where freedom would not be challenged. By 1945, over 15,000 Mustangs had rolled off assembly lines across California and Texas. Each one represented more than metal and engineering. It was speed, endurance, courage, and innovation fused into a single lethal package. Pilots gave her nicknames like the Cadillac of the Skies, or the Bloody Silver Bullet, revering her for precision, reliability, and deadly elegance. In dogfights over Europe, every maneuver seemed a choreographed ballet of death, every dive a statement of superiority. And yet, even at the height of her dominance, the world overlooked a quiet truth: the P-51 was tethered to war. The end of the conflict would challenge her relevance, and her survival would depend not on bullets, but on adaptability. Victory in Europe was declared on May 8, 1945. The euphoria was deafening in London and Paris. The rubble of Berlin whispered the cost of freedom. But in airfields across the United States, the Mustang was beginning a new, quieter journey. Engines cooled. Pilots disbanded. Hangars emptied. The very aircraft that had symbolized unstoppable force now faced redundancy. New technology, particularly jet propulsion, was emerging on the horizon. The P-80 Shooting Star, sleek and futuristic, promised to replace the venerable propeller-driven fighters. And yet, as history would reveal, the Mustang's story was far from over. The irony is striking. A plane designed for war would find its next chapter in peace, in reinvention, and even in human obsession. The world thought victory would render her irrelevant. They were wrong. In the post-war era, Mustangs were repurposed, redesigned, sold overseas, flown by new generations of pilots, and displayed in airshows where their roar became nostalgia incarnate. This was not merely the afterlife of a fighter plane, it was a testament to resilience, creativity, and human fascination with flight itself. The Mustang embodied a paradox. On one hand, it represented raw technological might capable of imposing death across vast distances. On the other, its post-war survival demonstrated that human value is not static, that even instruments of war can evolve into icons of inspiration. The contradiction defines this story. The same machine that destroyed cities and defended continents would later inspire joy, curiosity, and ingenuity in an entirely different context. Consider the human element. Pilots who flew Mustangs in Europe returned to a world that no longer demanded their skill in combat. Their letters, diaries, and memoirs are filled with longing, nostalgia, and awe. One veteran, recalling his first flight over the Rhine, wrote, "She wasn't just an aircraft. She was trust in metal form, a partner in the sky. To see her grounded after the war felt like losing a friend." Civilian aviation enthusiasts shared this reverence. In surplus auctions, these machines, once symbols of lethal power, became cherished possessions. Restorers poured countless hours and resources into bringing them back to life. Airshows transformed hangars and fields into theaters of memory, where engines roared not for war but for spectacle, not for destruction but for admiration. Strategically, the Mustang's journey mirrored global transitions. Surplus aircraft were sold internationally under the Military Assistance Program. Nations like Italy, Israel, Turkey, and several Latin American countries incorporated the P-51 into their air forces. Even as jets dominated air-to-air combat, the Mustang thrived as a ground attack aircraft in Korea, reconnaissance tool, and trainer. Her adaptability made her a bridge between eras, the last great propeller fighter before the jet age, a symbol of continuity amid rapid technological change. This is also a story about human ambition and ingenuity. The Mustang's post-war survival demonstrates how humans can transform the obsolete into the extraordinary. It asks a broader question. When the tools of power are no longer needed for their original purpose, what becomes of them? How do societies and individuals reclaim meaning? The Mustang's journey answers this in full, showing that utility is not fixed, and legacy is shaped as much by perception as by engineering. And so, from the sun-scorched desert storage yards of Nevada to the crowded skies of airshows across America, the Mustang continued to live, reminding everyone who saw her that history is never linear. Machines may age, empires may crumble, but ingenuity, audacity, and human fascination with flight endure. Ultimately, this story is about more than an aircraft. It is about memory, adaptation, and the intersection of technology and human nature. It is about triumph and obsolescence, war and peace, destruction and beauty. The Mustang's post-war life reveals that victory is not the end of a story, but the beginning of transformation. It shows us that the real power is not steel or wings, it is imagination, determination, and the enduring desire to soar. In this documentary, we will trace the journey of the P-51 Mustang after World War II, from the quiet airfields of the American Southwest to the front lines of Korea, from surplus auctions to civilian airshows, from relic to legend. We will explore how a machine designed to dominate the skies became an enduring symbol of human creativity, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between pilot and plane. In the end, the Mustang's post-war odyssey reminds us of an essential truth. Greatness is not defined by its moment of necessity, but by its ability to inspire, adapt, and endure. May 8, 1945. Europe breathed a sigh of relief. Berlin smoldered in ruin. Streets that had once vibrated with the march of tanks now echoed the shuffle of liberated civilians. Above them, the skies were silent. The P-51 Mustang, the silver arrow of freedom, was grounded. Its roar no longer dominated the clouds. Its deadly elegance was confined to hangars and storage yards. For pilots, it was a bitter irony. The machine that had defined aerial supremacy, that had enabled victory after victory, was now obsolete before its full story could even be written. The scale of production was staggering. Over 15,000 Mustangs produced between 1942 and 1945, at facilities in Inglewood, California, and Dallas, Texas. Each engine meticulously crafted, each fuselage polished to a mirror sheen, every Mustang represented not just engineering prowess but the lives and courage of the men who flew them. Pilots called them the Silver Bullets, and for good reason. In dogfights over Europe, the Mustang was unmatched, fast, agile, and virtually unstoppable at high altitudes. Yet, paradoxically, the very success of the Mustang sowed the seeds of its post-war challenges. Piston-driven fighters, no matter how powerful, were already giving way to jet propulsion. The P-80 Shooting Star and other jet aircraft promised unprecedented speed and maneuverability. Military planners, now looking toward an uncertain post-war world, considered the Mustang a technological relic, a tool of a bygone era. Surplus aircraft flooded desert storage yards, some lined up in long rows like tombstones of steel, engines silent, their glory fading under the scorching sun. It was a moment of tension and contradiction. The world had just witnessed the Mustang's unmatched dominance, yet already the question lingered: what becomes of a machine that has outlived its purpose? The war that had demanded it was over, yet the plane itself would find life in ways no one anticipated. By 1946, the U.S. military had a decision to make: mothball these thousands of aircraft or find them new roles. For the P-51, the answer came in reinvention. Military assistance programs, foreign sales, and post-war conflicts offered unexpected lifelines. Surplus Mustangs were sold abroad in large numbers under the Military Assistance Program. Italy, Israel, Turkey, and even countries in South America became recipients. The aircraft, once a tool of destruction, became instruments of deterrence, training, and defense. Italy integrated them into its post-war air force, Israel used them in its 1948 War of Independence, and Turkey employed them for border patrols. The Mustang's airframe, though designed for speed and dogfighting, was versatile enough to adapt to new missions. In the U.S., the Mustang also found a second life in training programs. Jets were faster but less forgiving. Pilots still needed the Mustang for advanced propeller flight training. Retrofits included updated avionics, radios, and navigation systems. The aircraft that had once escorted bombers over the Reich now trained a new generation of aviators, bridging the gap between war and peace. The Mustang also took an unexpected role in the Korean War. Though jets dominated air-to-air engagements, propeller-driven aircraft like the Mustang excelled in ground attack missions. Its long range and heavy payload allowed it to strike supply lines, bunkers, and troop positions with precision. Major Charles Connolly, stationed in Korea, recorded in his diary, "The Mustang may be old, but she hits harder than any new jet when she's low over the ground. The enemy feels every ounce of her fury." The transition from top-tier fighter to ground attack platform illustrated a crucial truth: technological relevance is context-dependent. The Mustang's design, endurance, speed, and payload made it surprisingly resilient in a new type of combat. The post-war period was rife with debates over military strategy, aircraft utility, and technological obsolescence. Jets were faster and modern, but prop-driven Mustangs were more versatile at low altitude and for sustained operations. Tactical manuals were rewritten, reports filed, and debates raged in command centers from Washington to Seoul. A report from the U.S. Air Force in 1949 noted, "While the P-51 lacks the speed to challenge MiG-15s in air-to-air combat, her endurance, reliability, and low-altitude performance make her invaluable for close air support and reconnaissance. Tactical value cannot be judged by speed alone." In South America, pilots faced their own challenge. Foreign conflicts required aircraft that could operate from short, rugged airstrips, often far from maintenance hubs. The Mustang excelled in this environment, proving that engineering quality and adaptability often outweigh raw speed. Even among civilians, the Mustang sparked debates and fascination. Surplus auctions drew veterans and enthusiasts alike. Some purchased Mustangs for racing, others for restoration, and some simply for the pride of ownership. The Mustang's technical superiority was paired with aesthetic beauty: the curves, the polished fuselage, the roar of its engine, making it one of the most beloved aircraft of the post-war era. Perhaps the most compelling chapter of the Mustang's post-war life lies in the human stories. Veterans who flew her during the war carried memories that intertwined with nostalgia. Former pilots wrote letters describing the emotional bond they felt with a machine that had carried them over enemy territory, protected bombers, and delivered victory. Lieutenant Richard "Rick" Owens wrote in 1947, "I see her now, gleaming in the hangar, and I hear her roar over the Rhine. She's not just steel and aluminum. She's the courage of every pilot who dared the skies." Civilians, often former servicemen themselves, preserved the Mustang with reverence. Airshows became theaters of memory, where engines roared not to destroy, but to inspire. Each barrel roll, each dive, each gleam of polished metal carried a whisper of history, a reminder of triumph, fear, and human courage. Even children grew up marveling at the Mustang, its legacy embedded in national consciousness. Museums displayed her alongside other icons of the era. Books, documentaries, and interviews kept her story alive. The Mustang became more than an aircraft; it became a symbol of aspiration, freedom, and enduring excellence. By 1950, more than 1,500 Mustangs had been exported overseas, hundreds retrofitted for training, and countless others restored by private enthusiasts. Production numbers, once a measure of wartime might, became a gauge of cultural and technological legacy. The psychological impact of this transformation was profound. For former pilots, seeing the Mustang restored and flying again was cathartic, a living reminder of bravery and sacrifice. For military strategists, it was a lesson in adaptability. Even when technology is replaced, human ingenuity can find new purpose for old tools. For civilians, the Mustang represented mastery over flight and a tangible connection to history. The Mustang also influenced aircraft design. Pilots' feedback, post-war modifications, and operational experience informed the next generation of jet fighters. Its aerodynamic efficiency, range, and reliability set a standard that engineers aspired to surpass. In this sense, the Mustang's impact transcended its operational lifespan, shaping aviation for decades. Ultimately, the post-war life of the P-51 Mustang is a story of reinvention and resilience. It challenges the assumption that obsolescence is final, that technological supremacy is fleeting. From the deserts of Nevada to the skies over Korea, from foreign air forces to civilian air shows, the Mustang demonstrated that greatness persists when combined with imagination and human devotion. Its story underscores a philosophical truth: the real weapon is not steel or wings, but human creativity and perseverance. The Mustang reminds us that innovation can survive beyond immediate purpose, that objects of power can evolve into symbols of beauty, courage, and memory. The P-51 Mustang's odyssey after World War II illustrates the intersection of technology, human ingenuity, and historical continuity. Machines are created for necessity, but their legacies are defined by the humans who adapt, preserve, and celebrate them. In the end, the Mustang was more than a plane, it was a bridge between war and peace, past and future, destruction and wonder. The roar of a P-51 Mustang over a sun-drenched airfield in Nevada feels timeless. It is the same roar that once echoed over the skies of Europe, slicing through clouds over Berlin, Leipzig, and the Ardennes. Yet the context has shifted. The engines are no longer singing a requiem for war, they hum a hymn of memory, ingenuity, and resilience. The P-51, once a weapon of destruction, now carries stories of revival, nostalgia, and transformation. After World War II, the world believed that victory had rendered some tools obsolete. The Mustang, despite its unmatched record, was considered an artifact of a bygone era. Thousands were stored in sun-bleached desert boneyards, lined like silent sentinels to history. Its fate seemed fixed, discarded, forgotten, a footnote to the jet age. But as time would show, greatness cannot simply be shelved. The Mustang story continued, shaped by the vision, obsession, and reverence of humans who refused to let her roar die. The post-war journey of the Mustang is, in many ways, a mirror of human ambition. Nations sought to repurpose her. Italy, Israel, Turkey, and other countries integrated Mustangs into their air forces, not as relics but as tools of sovereignty, defense, and tactical advantage. Even in the Korean War, she returned to battle, not as the apex predator of the skies, but as a relentless ground attack aircraft, demonstrating that utility evolves with context. The Mustang taught a lesson that engineers, pilots, and strategists would carry for decades. Obsolescence is never absolute when skill and imagination intervene. The transformation extended beyond militaries. Civilians, veterans, and aviation enthusiasts purchased Mustangs at surplus auctions. They restored engines, polished fuselages to mirror-like perfection, and flew her again not to destroy but to inspire. Airshows became cathedrals of memory, where the Mustang's roar evoked both nostalgia and awe. Pilots who had once risked their lives over flak-choked skies found themselves instructing a new generation, bridging the past and future. One veteran wrote in a letter preserved in the Smithsonian archives, "Flying her again, I feel that we never really left the war. But it is different now, no fear, only the joy of flight and the echo of what we survived together." The Mustang's post-war legacy was also technological. Her design, aerodynamic efficiency, and endurance influenced the jet fighters that followed. Engineers studied her every curve, every roll, every successful sortie. Lessons learned from retrofitted Mustangs informed engine design, flight training, and combat strategy in the early Cold War era. Even as jets eclipsed her speed, the Mustang's principles endured, ensuring her impact on aviation outlived her active combat life. Yet, perhaps the most compelling aspect of her post-war story lies in the human imagination. The Mustang was a canvas for nostalgia, creativity, and memory. Pilots remembered, restorers revived, and spectators celebrated. Across airshows in small American towns and European fields, the Mustang became not a machine of war, but a storyteller, narrating courage, innovation, and human endurance. She transformed from steel and fuel into legend. There is a subtle moral irony in her journey. The same aircraft that had been forged to dominate, to destroy, and to protect, became a vessel of remembrance, teaching lessons far beyond the battlefield. Victory in war is tangible, measurable, territory gained, enemies defeated. But the Mustang reminds us that legacy is intangible, emotional, and universal. Her value shifted from utility to inspiration, from weapon to symbol, reflecting the paradoxical nature of human progress. What we build for war can endure for peace, what we discard can return as iconography, and what seems obsolete can spark reinvention. Socially, the Mustang also bridged generations. For veterans, she was a link to youth, courage, and comradeship. For civilians, she was an object of aspiration, a spark for curiosity, and a testament to human ingenuity. For countries that integrated her post-war, she was both tool and trophy, proof that American engineering could shape the global balance of power even after conflict ended. Her story transcended the war itself, moving into culture, memory, and identity. The Mustang also reveals the enduring human fascination with flight. The thrill of speed, the freedom of the skies, and the challenge of mastery over a machine remain as compelling in 1946 as they do in 2026. That thrill carries meaning. It is about risk, courage, and imagination. It is about the human desire to transform technology into art, and survival into celebration. The Mustang's post-war life is as much about psychology as engineering, as much about emotional resonance as specifications and statistics. Quantitatively, the legacy is undeniable. Over 1,500 Mustangs were exported, hundreds restored for civilian use, dozens retrofitted for training and secondary military operations. Tens of thousands of spectators, enthusiasts, and pilots have experienced her roar, her agility, and her beauty. But beyond numbers, her significance is qualitative, measured in awe, memory, and inspiration. The P-51 Mustang reminds us that technological mastery, like human courage, has layers that exceed simple metrics. And so, the Mustang teaches a lesson about transformation. She embodies a truth that transcends aviation, that the real power of creation is not fixed to a single purpose, and that endurance is as much moral and imaginative as it is mechanical. She shows us that innovation is not destroyed with the end of a war, that greatness persists when curiosity, passion, and reverence intersect. In the skies of airshows, over deserts, and in the pages of history books, the Mustang continues to soar. She is both an artifact of war and a testament to peace. Her polished wings reflect sunlight and memory alike. Her engines roar with history and imagination. And her story lingers, not just as the tale of a plane, but as a chronicle of human resilience, ambition, and creativity. As one pilot once said, watching a Mustang streak across the horizon, "She was born for war, but she teaches us how to fly in peace." That line encapsulates the duality of her journey, a machine forged for conflict that became a symbol of endurance, beauty, and the eternal human desire to transcend circumstance. The P-51 Mustang's odyssey after World War II reminds us that the end of a mission is never the end of meaning. Triumph gives way to legacy. Obsolescence gives way to reinvention. And what begins as necessity can evolve into inspiration. Across decades, continents, and generations, the Mustang remains a bridge between war and peace, history and memory, human ingenuity and aspiration. In the end, the story of the P-51 Mustang is a story of transformation. From the skies of Europe to the deserts of Nevada, from foreign air forces to civilian airshows, she endured. She adapted. She inspired. She taught that victory is not defined by domination alone, but by the capacity to endure, to innovate, and to resonate across time. And perhaps most importantly, the Mustang teaches a universal truth. Freedom, like flight, is a gift, a challenge, and a joy that must continually be rediscovered. Machines may rust, empires may fall, but the spirit of invention, courage, and wonder endures. The P-51 Mustang reminds us that even in obsolescence, there is possibility. Even in silence, there is memory. And even in the wake of war, there is hope, beauty, and the enduring roar of the human spirit.